Welcome to Future Takes, a series where we ask people for their views on achieving a more reconciled island of Ireland in the years ahead. Brian Dalton, CEO of Irish in Britain, lovely to talk to you. Fáilte.
Nice to meet you, Lynette. Thanks for having us here.
So tell me, Brian, what were your reasons for leaving Ireland?
I left Ireland in 1987 as a 17-year-old. And I was an economic migrant. And so I came here as a 17-year-old, and I've been here ever since. And I mean, there was many of my generation who came over with me. And out of my class, I'd say maybe 50% emigrated. In many ways, Ireland couldn't support us. It kind of failed us as young people. So many of us made the decision to move away.
And how has that changed your relationship with Ireland over those years?
I think for many migrants, the relationship with Ireland is a complicated one. And of course, things like identity are hugely important when you're setting up and building a new life somewhere else. And I think migrants can hold two things simultaneously. You can be very proud to be Irish and maybe rather ambivalent about Ireland itself and the circumstances that you left. But I think the Irish community are a huge asset because they're always batting for Ireland.
It's interesting that you say that as an economic migrant, someone who felt let down by the system and they felt you had no option but to leave, that you're still batting for Ireland though?
Well, I think that's very common amongst those who leave because we're fiercely proud to be Irish. Remember that we weren't always welcome in some of the cities that we moved to. And of course, the political and social and economic backdrop of the Irish community experience in Britain is particularly unique. And, you know, the temperature of British-Irish government relations really impacted community relationships on the ground. So I think that was really, really important, and that's why Good Friday Agreement was so important for the community in Britain. And I think outside of Ireland, there is no Irish community that has a greater stake in the Good Friday Agreement because how it impacted people's lives. And many of us remember how difficult it was. And relationships, particularly in cities like Warrington and Manchester and Birmingham, that had really suffered. So it was a huge moment for our community.
Over 25 years after the signing of the Good Friday Agreement, how have you seen that benefit the community you represent throughout Great Britain? Yeah,
I mean, there is a flourishing and thriving Irish community network in Britain. I mean, if you look at Irish culture and arts in Britain, there's a huge appetite for it. Irish theatre groups, Irish language groups, and actually it is a fantastic bridge into British audiences. Everybody likes to be around it. It's a wonderful export. And really a point of pride for Irish migrants is that this represents us, this speaks to our story. And then, of course, you have culture and art, which is generated by the Irish community experience and history in Britain. And I'm talking about, you know, things like the Pogues and Shane MacGowan and Elvis Costello, unique contributions that were forged within the Irish community experience in Britain.
Some people might be asking what is the importance of the story of the Irish diaspora to any changes in Ireland as we look to the future.
Yeah.
What is your response?
The organisation that I work in, Irish in Britain, was 50 years old last year, and we are an umbrella body for Irish community organisations throughout Britain. So there's a huge history of activism and a recognition that some of the history which defined us and made things so difficult, we had an opportunity to recast. And I'll give you an example. Our constitution as an organisation that was founded in 1973 is secular and had every reason to be reference a Catholic or a Roman Catholic heritage. But actually the people who founded it, I think, it was hugely progressive and far-reaching decision to have a constitution which didn't define people through their religion. And I think that was a direct product of the experiences that they would have had and their parents would have had in Ireland and in Britain. And also not politically aligned. So you're trying to create an infrastructure where people can join in a shared enterprise and that's regardless of your religion or your background. That's why it's so powerful. The community sector, civil society, creates bridges for people to get involved, and they bring communities together. So a thriving civil society creates huge benefit for everyone. And I think that has to be represented in the discussions about the future of Ireland. For our anniversary last year, we created a very large oral history project to capture and document the history of the Irish community over the last 50 years. Really diverse voices in there from all over Britain, which really tells the story about the evolution of the Irish community. The change and the evolution of Irishness has been happening within the diaspora from day one. Why? Because there is a need for adaptation and new alliances and new networks and new groupings. So we know what change looks like. Irishness sounds a bit different now and looks a bit different. Look at yesterday, England winning that football semi-final. There would have been many young people who may have Irish parents or Irish grandparents who would be wearing an England jersey last night. And they'll be wearing an Irish jersey during the Six Nations rugby. And there's no tension in that, and people can hold those identities simultaneously and quite lightly. And I think that's a hugely powerful thing. I mean, Irish identity has evolved hugely, and it is not owned by any one group or entity or organisation. It evolves, and that has been our experience if you look at the profile of our membership over the last 50 years. Irishness looks and sounds different than it used to, and I think that change and evolution of Irish identity has been happening since Irish people first moved to Britain. And it's a long, long story, and a story that's still being written.
Brian Dalton, it's been great to talk to you today.